Number 2, God knows what you need, and He's always preparing you for what lay ahead. See, you might be in the preparation time, and you might get discouraged because you don't see the flash or the finish, you don't see the end of it, or that's what you think that's going to happen. And sometimes those preparation times, they're not fun. They're not fun at all. How many of you guys are athletes? Raise your hand. You played high school or junior high sports. What's the worst part of practices? Conditioning, right? Conditioning stinks. But it's probably one of the most important. You give me a well-conditioned athlete, and eventually I'll beat you. Eventually I'll beat you. If you give me a well-conditioned athlete, you give me enough time, eventually I will beat you. Because that is a huge thing which I can build upon. Skill will come in time. But conditioning takes work. Maybe God's putting you in a season of getting conditioned. So number 2, God knows what you need, and He's always, always, always preparing you for what lay ahead. Now I'm going to talk about this guy named Abraham. You guys know him as Abraham. What I did was I went through a little bit of Abraham's life, and you know him as Abraham, but when we first meet him in the Word, his name is Abram. And if you want to kind of follow along with me really fast, it's found in Genesis 25. I'll give you a second to turn there. Genesis 25. I'm going to give you guys a real kind of like Reader's Digest version of the scene. When we meet him in Genesis 25, Abraham we just kind of get to know him. It says this. It says, wait a minute, hold on. Here we go. Sorry, it's Genesis 22. Abraham's faith is tested. It said, oh, wait, hold on. Man, I'm way, way off. Let me go to Genesis 12. That's better. Okay. The Lord had said to Abram, leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families on earth will be blessed through you. It says, so Abram departed as the Lord had instructed, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old. Abram was 75 years old. So, I'm going to follow him. Actually, what I'm going to tell you probably will follow 100 years of his life. 100 years of his life before this all comes to play. But let me give you guys, from chapter 12 to 25, reread these things that happened to him. First, he goes to leave. There's a famine in Canaan, so he goes to Egypt. That wasn't a good thing. He has troubles with his nephew Lot, so they have to separate. And he ends up taking the lesser of the land. So Lot goes to the lush place, and then Abram goes to the place where it's all desolate and everything. And then he has a good encounter with Melchizedek, and then God restates His promises. Okay, God goes back to Abram and reminds him of the promise that God had given him. Then Sarai and Abram try to fix the problem and say, because one of the things he said is, you're gonna, your children's 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 children is this great promise as he restates it. The problem was that Abram had no children. He had no sons. And he's 75, guys. 70, how many want to have a baby when you're 75? And first of all, who's over 65 here? Raise your head nice and tall. You want any babies in your house right now? Okay, all right. So he's 75 and he has no kids. He has no son, it says. So he's 75, he has no son, and God's saying, your children's children are going to, inherit the earth, and this land is going to be yours and everything else. And he's 75 going, wait a minute, hold on a second. Well, they get impatient. They're traveling around the country, they're going crazy, and they get impatient, they try to solve it themselves. So he has a baby with somebody else, with Hagar, and Ishmael's born, and that ends up to be a really bad deal. Okay, and so now he tries to fix it himself. God gave him a promise. Abram gets impatient, tries to fix it himself, brings himself more problems. Okay, now he's 99. Okay, he's 99. Still no son. Well, Ishmael's a son, but still no son from his wife. Then God restates His promises again, and He renames him Abraham, and He renames his wife Sarah. So now it's Abraham and Sarah, and she's 90 years old. He's 99 years old. and God says, I'm going to give you a son. I'm going to give you a son. Anybody still excited about having babies yet? Okay, 99, 100 years old. Okay, then something happens with Sodom and Gomorrah. There's all kinds of stuff going down in this town, and God says, I'm going to destroy Sodom. It's going to be wiped off the face of the earth. And Abram pleads, he says, if I can find 50 people here, just 50. And then he goes, okay, I won't do it. Well, how about 45, God? Well, yeah, sure, I'll keep it. If you can find 45, how about 40? How about 35? How about 20? And finally, Abraham says, God, if I can find 10 people, 10 righteous people, will you spare the city? God says, yes. And guess what? God destroyed the city. Couldn't even find 10 righteous people. That's how bad things were. And so Abraham's witness to all this stuff. And so now he's 100 years old, and finally he has a son. 100 years old, first son. Really great, huh? Finally. And you know what God asked him to do? For all that? Now remember, we've been following it. That's just 25 years, right? God gave him a promise. And then Abraham still hasn't seen it come through yet. 25 years later, he has his kid. So 25 years we've been waiting for this promise. How many of you guys get impatient after 25 minutes? Okay? Because I smelled the food in the fellowship hall, and I'm hungry. And I want to go right now. He's been waiting 25 years. Finally, Isaac is born. He's 100. And we're thinking, okay, finally it's going to happen. What does God do? God turns around and says, I want you to sacrifice your son to me. Can you imagine what he was going through? Can you imagine what happened? Well, we go on and we follow him, and we'll go on to let me see here, we go on to the verse that says, sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. Abraham, God called. Yes, he replied, here I am. Take your son, your only son, Isaac, in whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering. Wow. How many of you guys would have quit right there? I would have. Hey, I'm not Abraham. I'm just plain old James, and you know what? I wouldn't even have waited the 25 years. I'm surprised they waited as long as they did to even try to make their own way and make this thing happen, because I'm not a patient guy. And so here he is, and he's doing all this, and then all of a sudden he's got to give up his son, and he goes to do it. And towards the end, and the son's like, well, what about sacrifice, Dad? What's happening here? Well, God will provide, God will provide, God will provide. And so, and he just is a man of faith, so he just keeps saying to his son, and, obviously his son doesn't know he's a sacrifice, and so, but Abraham, they keep trudging up the mountain, and Abraham says, well, God will provide, God will provide. And then it says, when they arrived at the place where God had told him to go, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on it. Then he tied his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on the top of the wood. And Abraham picked up a knife to kill his son as a sacrifice. At that moment, the angel of the Lord called him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Yes, Abraham replied, here am I. Don't lay a hand on the boy, the angel said. Don't hurt him in any way. I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son. Obviously, here's a man that is intensely dedicated to God. And this incredible journey that he has just absolutely blows me away, because I would have never been able to go that far. So number 3 that we learned from Abraham, and we're going to build on it a little bit here in a second. Tony, go ahead and get ready to play that clip. We must always trust God. Simple. Number 3. We must always trust God. We must always trust God. Now, I have a little video clip that I want to show you, and then I'm going to build upon it, because I think just say, okay, we must always trust God, but there's some things here that we need to take into account. So go ahead and play that.